Hey, I'm Blair Best, and tonight on The Story, we begin in North Portland. And let me ask you something. If a homeless shelter moved into your neighborhood, would you move out? Well, that's what some people in this pocket of North Portland are talking about after this shelter reopened earlier this year, all part of the mayor's plan to end unsheltered homelessness. And it's our big story tonight. In this part of Portland, a neighborhood on the defense.
It's been absolutely miserable living here.
In January, the city directed the Salvation Army to reopen the Moore Street shelter off North Killingsworth Street, adding 100 beds towards Mayor Keith Wilson's goal of opening 1,500 by December 1st.
Once the shelter opened, everything completely changed.
Carrie Henderson lives across the street from the shelter entrance.
We've seen a significant increase in loitering, people sleeping on the sidewalk, drug usage. I've never seen open drug usage in the 13 years that I've lived in this house.
1 block away,
Oh, I feel helpless.
on Shilpa Street, just before 11 Sunday night, Portland police responded to reports of someone smashing 4 car windows. Security video shows the suspect damaging one of the cars. The next day, the windows were covered in plastic.
And then my other neighbor woke up to a brick on his windshield where it had been thrown.
Oh, it's horrifying. It's horrifying. I'm not surprised that that's happened.
Portland police arrested a 47-year-old woman for smashing at least one of the car windows. The mayor's office tells us she broke the windows after choosing to leave the Moore Street shelter, and that this is not the first time she's been arrested for similar crimes. Mayor Wilson's office tells us after 9 months of successful operations, this vandalism is by far the worst event connected to the shelter. Moore Street Shelter has provided over 23,500 nights of safe, dignified sleep to our city's most vulnerable, contributing to a decrease in crime in the area compared to the 6 months prior to opening. Neighbors see it differently.
It's really reduced our livability, the safety of the neighborhood.
And we've had homeless people throw bags of feces at our homes. This is not normal. People should not be living like this.
In a statement, a spokesperson for the Salvation Army says safety in the neighborhood is a primary concern. We do not condone violence or disruptive behavior in any way in the neighborhoods surrounding our facility.
I've stopped leaving the house because I know the moment I do, I'm going to see something.
Even people like Patrick,
I feel like they're doing a great job.
who stays at the shelter,
Just for the past couple days.
recognizes its impact on the neighborhood.
Sure, yeah, definitely. I've seen broken windows. I've seen everything. You can ask me anything. I've seen it.
Around this shelter?
Yeah, any shelter, yeah.
In part, why many neighborhoods across the city are skeptical of the mayor's shelter-first model when it comes to addressing homelessness.
Oh, awful. Just awful. You want to open them where there are absolutely no homes. Don't open them in a residential area. And our property taxes keep going up. So property taxes, city taxes, state taxes, the amount of money we're shelling out to fix this problem that they're not fixing is unacceptable.
Shilpa and others
Oh, hell yeah.
now planning to leave the city.
I will lose money on this house and I will live with it because this is not, for my mental health, this is not okay.
Realistically, I've been looking at houses outside of Multnomah County, outside of Portland, and it kills me because this is my house, my home, and I feel like I'm being forced from it.
I feel like the city cares more about these people who do drugs, who abuse themselves, who don't care about themselves or their society, and they don't care for tax-paying citizens. At what point do we go, nope, this is not okay?
Okay, it's also worth noting the Moore Street shelter is right across the street from a daycare and a few blocks from a high school. I asked the Salvation Army if there were talks of adding security to patrol the building, and they said not at this time. Neighbors tell me they are now banding together with other neighborhoods like the Pearl District to try and hold the city accountable, they say, for what happens as a result of these types of shelters. About 2 weeks ago, the city opened this 200-bed overnight shelter in the Pearl on Northwest Northrop Street. It was the 5th city shelter to open this year, despite major pushback from neighbors there, concerned the shelter would negatively impact the surrounding area, like what's happening in North Portland. Now, the head of the Pearl District Shelter Oversight Leadership Committee sent me the following statement, saying of that Northrop shelter, in part, In the 16 days since the shelter opened, I've received 206 email reports and exchanges regarding new campsites, piles of needles in the parks, nudity in the parks, people passed out in the streetcar stops, people passed out on the benches around Safeway, fecal matter in the tree wells. All of this is occurring within a few blocks of the shelter in the heart of the Pearl. The city overpromised on their ability to mitigate the effects of the shelter, and we continue to lobby for more effective strategies to truly help the homeless with their mental illness and drug addiction issues. Now, while the mayor is focused on building shelter capacity, some Portland City Councilors are looking at different housing models. Earlier this month, we told you about 3 members of City Council taking a trip to Vienna, Austria, using their taxpayer-funded office budgets to pay for it. Councilor Candace Avalos, Mitch Green, and Jamie Dunphy, along with members of their staff, joined a larger group, about 20 people altogether, to go to Vienna and learn about social housing. Now, that's housing owned and operated by government or, in some cases, nonprofits. I talked about it with Candace Avalos before the trip. When I asked about how much it was going to cost, she didn't have an answer at the time, and neither did anyone at the city. But now that everyone is back in town and they're starting to release that information, so let's dive in. The chief of staff for Candace Avalos posted online that Avalos and 2 staff members, her office, spent $6,700 in flights, $3,900 for hotel rooms, $1,900 for food per diem, $100 for transportation, and $7,000 in program fees. The total altogether, $19,677. Now, lots of you wanted to know why the councilors couldn't just learn about Vienna's social housing program over Zoom. In the same post talking about the costs, Avalos' chief of staff wrote that the lived experience and the 9-hour time difference convinced us that it was worth the time and expense to do this the right way. Zoom calls, did I mention the 9-hour time difference, were just not possible. Councilor Mitch Green says he and his chief of staff spent $2,600 on flights, another $2,300 on hotel rooms, and $7,200 on the program fee. He says they declined the per diem and covered meals and taxis with their own cash. They spent $11,950 altogether. And Councilor Jamie Dunphy says he and his chief of staff spent $4,500 on flights, $1,900 on hotels, $100 on taxis, $800 on food and incidentals, and $7,000 on program fees, for a total of $14,480. Okay, that makes the grand total for you, the taxpayer, for this trip to Vienna, $46,108.15. Now, each councilor says they expect some kind of partial refund on the program fees, so this is not an exact number, but a close estimate. It's worth noting that yesterday, the City of Portland announced a hiring freeze for the rest of the fiscal year, so until the end of June 2026, to address budget challenges. Though to be fair, City Council office budgets, which paid for this Vienna trip, had to be allocated long before yesterday's announcement. Okay, so joining me now live to let us know whether or not this trip was worth it is Portland City Councilor Jamie Dunphy, representing East Portland, District 1. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's dive in. First, what kinds of things did you learn in Vienna that you think could be implemented here in Portland?
You know, Vienna is a testament to when government uses policy and their budgets in order to center housing as a human right. I experienced a mix of incomes all across, from affordable housing and very low income people, recent arrivals, refugees and immigrants, all the way up through higher income earners living intermingled, so that you actually can't tell someone's income based off of their address. Every single area we found was filled with parks and playgrounds and older adults and walkable neighborhoods and small businesses and tiny grocery stores. We saw some of the most reliable transit in the world that I've ever seen, and everywhere surrounding it was deeply affordable housing. People were not afraid that they were going to be experiencing enormous rent increases or going to fall into homelessness because of affordability. There were still challenges. There was still graffiti. There was still litter. There were still some signs of homelessness. But ultimately, in conversations with tenants, with developers, with government officials, with historians, we really understood that housing centered as a human right means that the quality of life that the neighbors get to experience, the intermingling of community that individuals get to have, and the benefit that all of these community members have, really creates a quality where they have more money to spend in small businesses, to invest in their economy, to be able to afford a kind of life that all of these folks really just want to have. Centering children, centering older adults, centering young adults who are out on their first housing opportunity. Using policy as a tool for that is something that we can absolutely emulate here.
So on social media, you posted a reel to social media about the trip. You said, centering housing affordability policies around the object, not the subject, leads to better affordability outcomes. Okay, can you explain that? What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely. The government treats these housing units as assets that they maintain. They set very clear parameters for what is going to be built and how it's going to be built. Some of it is built by the government themselves in municipal housing. And as you said, some of it is built by limited profit housing providers, which are private companies that still have architects and developers and designers and beautiful office spaces to be able to build the kind of housing that is architecturally interesting, is built around the lived experience of the people who are going to be living there and how they're going to be using it. It has environmentally friendly focus that makes sure that they are centering net zero as a goal in order to try and maintain some sort of level of carbon neutral approach to living. And the economics of the actual building were based off of the cost of the building being built. Rather than tying it to the income of an individual like we do here, most of our housing is tied to a percentage of area median income, which means that if you get a good job and you're living in affordable housing, you can get evicted because you make too much money now. But they focus on how much did it cost to build this apartment, and what is the per square foot cost that actually means for that tenant. When loans are paid off, the rent goes down. If a maintenance issue comes up, rent goes up a little bit, but it's tied to the object and the idea that we are maintaining a public asset that is achieved for the public good. The city of Portland has spent literally almost $1 billion building affordable housing that right now we have hundreds of affordable units that are sitting empty because we can't find tenants to fit them. And we have units that are in disrepair because the rents are so low that we can't maintain them. So we are looking at some of these options of how do we build a system that invests for the long term.
So I want to stop you there. You said we have hundreds of affordable housing units sitting empty because
Absolutely.
we can't find tenants. I mean, I could go point to 100 homeless people on the streets who would love to have an affordable housing unit. Yeah. Where's the disconnect?
Yeah, when the city builds using federal LIHTC credits, it's a low-income housing tax credits, we are tied to building that at 60% of area median income. I mean, it's not built for homeless folks. It's not built for folks who are making 30% of area median income. It is built for people who are at 60%, which is almost what market rate rents are right now. And so right now, if you have the option of going through all the rigmarole of trying to apply for affordable housing, or you could come live in my district in East Portland and Powellhurst, for maybe $150 more for an apartment unit, you're probably going to go live in that market rate housing. We've been building the wrong type of housing for the population that actually desperately needs it. And so now we have a mismatch, and we have a lot of nonprofits who are desperately trying to fill those units, but they can't find the right kind of tenants. We literally have hundreds of empty apartment units sitting across the city.
Wow, that's so concerning.
It's deeply concerning.
Okay, so let's go back to this social housing model. Austria has a very different kind of government than Portland does. So do you think their models are really viable here from both a government and a tax perspective?
Austria has a 100-year head start, and they had great grandparents who made some really interesting decisions that the current government and the current elected officials are doing a great job of treating like an existing resource that they need to protect. Similar to how our great-grandparents created the national forest system and we can protect it against clear cutting, they are protecting the affordable housing units that they have and creating it for the long term. Now, but they have a 100-year head start. Portland will not look like Vienna in my lifetime. There's no chance of that. But there are things that we can do now in order to plan for the next 100-year future. And in fact, I had an opportunity to speak with a member of their national parliament who is the chair of their social housing. And I asked her, you have a 100-year head start. what should Portland be doing right now? And she said very unequivocally, define tenants' rights. Define the role and responsibilities of a landlord and land bank, land bank, land bank. The city should not be selling off public property and should instead be looking for opportunities to purchase developable land that we can maintain for the long term to entice affordability out of development.
So this trip faced a lot of pushback from Portlanders. It was on taxpayers' dime. Some people argued you could just do this over Zoom. There's a time difference, all of that. I know some of those concerns. Why, in your perspective, was it so necessary to go to Vienna in person?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that most of the people who are arguing this are arguing in bad faith. I think that they don't have a real understanding of what an $8 billion city budget looks like. And just for example, this costs less than 1/10% of my office budget for my office alone. That said, there are also many of the same people in my Instagram comments who are saying, how dare the city continue to allow employees to work from home and do their jobs over Zoom? I don't believe that a lot of those folks actually have any real interest in the city moving forward or investing in their people. But every single day, the top issue I hear is homelessness, housing, affordability, and economic development. And what I saw in Vienna, and you can only truly appreciate when you're there, is a robust ecosystem of housing, of economic development, of support for the people who are living there. We saw homelessness, as I said. We saw some of the disparities between incomes. But we didn't see the kind of behavior that we see on the streets here in the United States. We didn't see the kind of vulnerability that we are putting so many of our tenants into. Representing the east side of Portland, we know that people don't fall into homelessness in Laurelhurst. You fall into it in Powellhurst, because that is how these things work. And as rents are rising, as the real estate market is getting wildly out of control, and we have no real tools to be able to address it, we need to think about what are some national and international best practices. Our trip to Vienna, we got to experience, it's one thing to see on a PowerPoint that reliable public transit is helpful. It's another thing to stand there and experience it. A new train coming every 5 minutes and every single one filled with children and adults and people on their way to work and older adults who are off to the library or off to try and shop, and to experience what it's like to walk through a park filled with children who are of different backgrounds and different incomes and different nationalities, and actually meshing and creating something bigger than themselves. It was an experience that I am already excited about, trying to figure out how we can apply to the limited dollars that we're already investing into housing to some of the most troubled parts of our community. I represent Gateway, where the Fred Meyer just closed, but that is some of the most highly dense zoned properties in the city of Portland. We can build 14 stories of housing right there, but no one ever has. What if the government came in and built something intentional next to some of the best transit in the city, next to some amazing opportunities for walking around to small businesses and protected bike lanes? We can do more with the dollars we already have in order to actually create something that is of value for the community for the long term.
Okay, Councillor Dunphy, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so now it's your turn to weigh in. Do you think the trip to Vienna was worth it for the 3 city councilors using tax dollars? Did anything that Councillor Dunphy say change the way you've thought about this issue? Let us know. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Well, coming up next on the story, after the city of Portland announced a land use violation against the ICE office, last night's city council meeting was interrupted more than once by anti-ICE demonstrators. We'll bring you those highlights when the story returns. Well, now to a follow-up on a story we brought you last night regarding the ICE office in South Portland. Today, the city of Portland issued a land use violation against the feds, accusing ICE of violating its land use permit more than 24 times over a 10-month period, alleging detainees were held overnight or for more than 12 hours, apparently not allowed by the current permit. That announcement of early action against the feds yesterday afternoon led to a contentious Portland City Council meeting last night. Alma McCarty was there.
Wednesday's City Council meeting interrupted.
There's not a law we can do.
Several in the chambers calling for the shutdown of Portland's ICE facility, halting the meeting not once, but twice.
Your conduct right now is disrupting our meeting. We have people who are here to do the business of the city tonight.
This display just hours after the mayor announced the city will issue a land use violation notice on Thursday.
This review was triggered by the federal government's breaking promises to our community regarding the detention of human beings.
Specifically, the city believes ICE violated its land use conditions 25 times in 10 months by detaining people for more than 12 hours or keeping them overnight.
This is just one step in a formal process. The outcome is not a foregone conclusion, and the federal government will be given an opportunity to respond.
Well, it's a good start in the right direction. I mean, it's progress. Any progress is good progress.
Protesters outside the facility for weeks and months reacting to this update.
We are a bit relieved, still kind of holding our breath, because everything takes a long time. And this building is not only an eyesore for the community, but it represents a lot of brutality.
They explain it's been a contentious scene between federal officers and demonstrators. And that tension's clearly visible in this interaction caught on camera Wednesday afternoon. A person over the blue line demarcating federal property is rushed by officers and then runs into traffic. We're told the person suffered minor injuries but will be okay. Meanwhile, Councilor Angelita Murillo says she'll be bringing forward 3 policies aimed at how ICE navigates in Portland, but tells me in this land use case, for now, Council must remain neutral.
And I hope that this signals to Portlanders that we are going to hold everybody accountable, whether that be a local business or the federal government. The law applies equally to everybody as far as I'm concerned.
Now, as far as where things go from here, the federal government has 30 days to correct the alleged violations. The city says the last time they violated the permit was nearly 4 months ago, so that avenue may be possible. Otherwise, the city's Permitting and Development Office can initiate a reconsideration of the permit by scheduling a hearing more than 60 days from today. ICE has not responded to our multiple requests for comment. Stay with us. We're back right after this. Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air it at 8:30 and 10:30 p.m. on our TV app, KGW+, which you can download for free right now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, have a great Thursday night. The weekend is almost here. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.